Blog Talk Radio.
Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot, oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girlz. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here are your supernatural hosts, Patricia Baker and Becky Andreasson. Supernatural Girlz.
Welcome, everybody. This is Patricia Baker, and I am your host tonight for Supernatural Girlz. Unfortunately, Becky Andreasson is recovering at home from a bad cold and a cough, and she sends everybody her love, and we send it right back. And, Becky, we all hope that you're feeling better. You are going to be missed tonight. But we do have a terrific show, or I have a terrific show for you, actually, with a phenomenal guest, Sandra Corcoran, who is the author of Shamanic Awakening, My Journey Between the Dark and the Daylight. I'm going to be talking with Sandy in just a few minutes, but I wanted to first talk about a little bit of paranormal news. I picked this up from a friend of mine, Peter Shampoo, who is an Earth Grid researcher. If you are unfamiliar with Peter's work, you should check it out. It's fascinating. But he posted something about the Cardinal Grand Cross Cosmic Portal, which is April 22nd, 2014. So that is coming up in just a few days. And in this information, it talks about the Grand Cross formation, which takes place between April 7th and May 9th of this year. And what makes this Grand Cross phase so spectacular is the uncommon number of celestial events and planetary alignments during this time frame. For example, they list here the first of a rare blood moon and a full moon eclipse, which we have experienced already on the 15th of April. A tetrad is a series of 4 consecutive blood, moon, lunar eclipses. There have only been 7 since the birth of Christ. And throughout history, when these tetrads appear, major events happen. Civilizations fall, new nations form, stock market crashes, earthquakes, change, all in capital letters. We have a meteor shower also coming up on April 23rd and 24th. And Mars is the closest to the Earth in 6 years. There's going to be a complete solar eclipse, new moon, on April 28th and 29th, grand trines, T-squares, transits and retrogrades, and the peak of the Cardinal Grand Cross is April 22nd at 8:31 p.m. Now, they go on to talk about change, but also we've been obviously going through a lot of turmoil on the planet and personally, but this is going to become an opportunity for the divine trinity and the cosmic embrace. So there's an opportunity here, they're saying, for the sacred union of the divine feminine and the divine masculine. So it's uniting the heart and mind through divine cosmic love. What a nice opportunity. So I wanted to share that with everybody tonight. I know we've been in contact with a lot of you. We've heard from you what's going on in your lives, and it's quite tumultuous. So this is a nice piece of news that we have something to embrace, basically ourselves, but the male and female and the opportunity for that to come together, which is just, again, so exciting that we're living in these times of great change and great opportunity. So tonight we are going to be speaking with, as I mentioned, a terrific guest, Sandra Corcoran. And Sandy is a shamanic counselor trained for 30 years in traditional and esoteric healing techniques throughout the Americas and Europe. She is co-founder of the STAR Process Soul Retrieval Method and offers workshops and sacred journeys nationally and internationally. She has a private practice right here in Natick, Massachusetts, so she's a local. And I'm going to bring her on the show right now because we got a lot to talk about. Sandy, welcome to Supernatural Girls.
Hey, Patricia. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. Your book is extraordinary. I loved it. Again, the name of the book is Shamanic Awakening, My Journey Between the Dark and the Daylight. It is available on Amazon.com. So, Sandy, what a journey. My goodness. Wow.
It's been a long one, yes.
Oh, my goodness. Well, we'll start at the beginning. Please tell us about this tragic loss that kind of set you on the path.
Well, about 30 years ago, I had my first daughter, and she was a Down syndrome baby and quite a light. And unfortunately, like many Down's children, she needed open heart surgery, and she never made it through the open heart surgery.
Oh, my.
And although we were able to bring her home for a few weeks, the situation was such that the surgery itself didn't work, and she passed away one morning in my arms, which is, I never wish that on any parent. And about 6 weeks later, I was driving aimlessly, like I did many evenings, trying to find myself or bury myself. And at that time, I stopped at an area where I needed to use the restroom. And when I went inside, it turned out it was a workshop going on, and it was quite difficult to be in all the lights and the noise. They had been in the middle of a break. But when I tried to leave, I wasn't able to do so. And to this day, I don't know whether it was a matter of just not having eaten enough for a long period of time and just being in a deep state of grief. But at the end of the workshop, I went up to thank the woman who was speaking, even though I had no idea who she was, what she had said, why I was there. And she turned to me and said that I was one of the reasons she had come, that she was going to start to teach me, and it was a promise I had made, great mystery, a long time ago.
Oh,
and
goodness. That must have been shocking.
It was more than shocking, and I was very resistant because I just wanted to kind of bury my head under a blanket. But she insisted, and she was my first Native American teacher, and it really was a moment that opened my world to something entirely different, and I attribute that gift to my daughter. I think that's the gift she left me when she passed.
You know, this is just an incredible experience. I mean, you went from one swing of the pendulum to the other. I mean, having this beautiful daughter ripped from you so young in her life, and then, again, being caught up in so much grief. And as you talk about this, I mean, I know other people, many people, unfortunately, who have gone through this terrible experience of the loss of a child, and it is something that some people never, ever recover from. And here you found yourself in this amazing spiritual place with it was Oshana, wasn't it? Oshana Fastwell?
Yes, she was my first teacher, and I spent probably 5 or 6 years training with her. And I think one of the important parts with any of the mentors that I met along the way, any of the wisdom teachers, and whether you turn to a counselor or a priest or you have an indigenous mentor like I had, the journey is really your own in the sense that you have to make the choice to face that dark side. And I think all of us don't get out of this lifetime without facing some form of loss or grief or deep, deep, deep disappointment. And
absolutely.
The most important thing I think for all of us is the the desire to make a different choice, to not stay in that place, although I was in that place for very many years, for a good 3 years before I finally realized, what I was doing to myself.
So even though you began working with Oshana, the grief was still with you. So you still had to, it's not like you met Oshana and it suddenly magically disappeared. You still had to work through it.
Absolutely, and all these years later, my voice got very shaky when you opened the show and asked me that question, because I can still be in that space immediately. And I think anybody who's lost a child probably can as well. It doesn't matter how many years has passed. You can still go right back to that moment.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just beyond tragedy when that situation happens, and I have walked with a lot of people through that experience. It is extremely challenging, and yet it brought you to a doorway, and here you were graced, truly graced with a great teacher. I know of Oshana. I used to know her as Oshana Fastwolf was the name years ago that I knew her by, and I spoke with her only once. She was a very remarkable woman. And she's still with us, isn't she, on this side?
Yes, she is still with us, but she's quite elderly, and she is failing at this point. Mm-hmm. And that's the sadness of so many of these wonderful, wonderful teachers, is so many of them have passed already. And I have such gratitude for being able to, be a part of their lives and have them be a part of my lives. They were instrumental in the last 30 years for me.
Well, you have been, again, extremely blessed in the people that you have drawn to you, that have taught you. Your book is filled with remarkable people and the relationships you developed with them that brought you further along on your spiritual path. And with Oshana, please tell us more about what you learned from her, what she taught you. And as I understand it, she also suffered the loss of a child. Is that true?
Yes. In fact, that was it. Very initially, that's the thing that drew me to her, because the next day when I showed up at the weekend that she was teaching, she had been doing a lecture that night that I walked in on the event. I had gone back because somebody had told me what to do. And at that point, I really needed somebody to tell me what to do. But when I was in the ladies' room, just kind of gathering myself and thinking it was ridiculous to even be there because I would burst into tears at any moment, mm-hmm. I went to leave the ladies' room, and she was standing there. And she was a mighty teacher. She took no prisoners, really. That was the line we always talked about with her. And she had her arms crossed, and she didn't know me at all. Even the night before, she hadn't asked me what was wrong or why I was there. She had just told me to show back up the next day and that she was going to gift me with the teachings. And when I came out, she was standing there, and all she said to me was, "My first daughter crossed too. Now get yourself out there."
Wow.
And I was stunned because I knew nothing about her, she knew nothing about me, and yet that was something that became my bridge to be able to go out and start to listen to her. And ironically, even with some of my other female mentors, I held that in common with them as well. They had also lost children.
My goodness. So they recognize this, at least, well, at first Oshana did, and Oshana, I know, can see beyond into so many different levels of reality. So even though she hadn't known you in this earth plane, she must have known you because she recognized a kindred spirit and was offering to share her teachings with you, which I know she didn't do with everybody. So that was quite an honor.
Yes, it was an honor. And over the years, I met a lot of she used to call us accomplices. She wouldn't let us call ourselves apprentices. So over the years, there were a significant number of us, probably a couple of handfuls of us that along different parts of the United States would study with her.
Well, again, this is just a remarkable experience that, again, going from this deep grief, the loss of your child, and then into this head first, basically, onto this spiritual path where you're learning about crystals and dreams and all kinds of exciting and wonderful things from the other side of the veil. Can you tell us a little bit about what Oshana taught you with these types of things?
Certainly. At the time she was teaching us, one of the modalities she was teaching us was how to heal with crystals, and that crystals have an energy, a vibration to them. Different crystals, different colors, different gemstones have different healing qualities, and we would often use them in tandem. At the time, she was working quite a bit with one of her dearest friends, Dr. Dolores Krieger, who had brought through therapeutic touch. And so she was teaching us, along with Dr. D, how to work the light body energy that encompasses our physical bodies to bring healing or resonance or a higher vibration with the crystals. There were other things she taught us, like the elements. Almost all of my native teachers feel that the elements are an intrinsic part of the earth energy and that we all are beholding to different aspects of the elements. So we would have to work, and this took a number of years, but through each of the seasons with each of the elements. So, for example, we had to experience fire in all its forms. We had to experience water in all its forms, whether that was ice or dew or a lake or an ocean. We had to experience the element of air. So what is air like at the top of a mountain? What is air like in a cave? What is air when it's blowing by you in the winter as opposed to the summer? And those were really rich teachings because you discovered something very deep in terms of your own alignment with the earth. And then I think the other main thing besides rituals and ceremonies was the dream time, which throughout all my teachings, it was something that I really gravitated to because lucid dreaming is something that came fairly naturally to me. And so I was able to use that to discover a lot of different parts of the teaching, but also parts of my own inner psyche.
And you actually had a very powerful dream where you saw your daughter who had passed.
Yes, and I think the most extraordinary thing about that dream is it really was one of the first times that I understood that time and space, the continuum of time and space goes beyond what we understand, that we are in such multidimensional and interdimensional levels. Because in the dream, it happened about 3 years after she passed, and she had been 16 months old when she passed away. And in the dream, she was 4. And so to me, to see her grown and to see her at an age that she would have been, and to also experience the dream itself, which was quite an in-depth dream, was very, very significant to me.
What I thought was so interesting is that you went to scoop her up in your arms, and she said, "Mommy, you're not supposed to be here."
Right. She said, "Mama," and that was the first and only word she had ever said to me. And she said it to me when she was crying, and I picked her up the day she passed. That was what she said to me when she looked at me. So when she said it to me in the dream, it's like quicksands under your feet. You don't kind of know what's happening, and yet you do know you're not supposed to be there.
That was just a remarkable dream, how powerful. And you also said you thought that would be maybe one of the last times that you would see her. Was it?
Yes, it was.
My goodness.
I have felt her around me. I have sensed her from, time to time. But I have never seen her again in a dream like that.
Just an incredible, incredible dream. Now, in your work with Oshana, you also had an experience with water that was quite fascinating. When I believe it was you went out to, was it sitting by a river that you heard the song?
Yes. One of the things we learned with her is that each of the different directions has a different teaching. and each of the elements has a different teaching. And in the workshop that particular weekend, which was well into my studies with her, we were working on finding your death chant. And in the native traditions, if you knew your death chant, when you were dying, you could sing the death chant and it would help you cross right to the other side. So you wouldn't get caught up in the, whether you want to call them orbs or bubbles or happenstances of this life that hold you back to repeating the karmic seeds going into another life. And while I was at the river, kind of just contemplating and wanting to be away from other people, I suddenly began to hear this song that I began to hum, but I thought it was somebody else playing an instrument back up at the workshop facility. Mm-hmm. And when the song finished and I just could hear the water again, I went back up and asked who had been playing the instrument because it was really beautiful. And nobody knew what I was talking about. And Oshana was able to use it as an example that I had just been given the first part of my death chant. So if you know what is your major direction, and if you know what your death chant is, which I've never been given another piece of that in all the years I've done the work, I'm hoping I get it before the end.
Yeah.
But if you can face the direction and sing the chant, it is supposed to help you exit this world in an easier fashion. I'll have to tell you when that happens.
Yeah, really. My goodness. I mean, it sounds like a part of almost like a cleansing process so that you can pass through, like you said, without being attached or having karma being attached to you. So you can sail through it a lot easier. And that's fascinating to me that this is part of the native tradition that you were taught. And, again, with the direction, and also is there an element? So you have to know your direction and your element and your death chant, or just the direction and the death chant?
No, it's the death chant and the direction you face to cross over.
I see, just that. Well, that's just amazing. And I think it's a wonderful thing to learn because death is a process that we're all going to go through. Yet it's something we tend to be afraid of. We want to avoid. We don't want to think about it. Yet in the native tradition, they're preparing us for it. So, well,
in many traditions, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're not.
I just wanted to say, in many traditions, people are taught the rites that go from birth to death. But I think we in the West, over time, have been taught about birth and we've been taught about life, but we haven't been taught the next natural part of that cycle, which is death. And if you lose the neck out on feeling comfortable or at least aware, I don't think any of us are comfortable with the thought of death, and certainly many of us are taken without any preparation for death. But if you're aware that it is a cycle that we all need to move through and that life is infinite, that you can come back, that you can restore parts of yourself in this lifetime before you cross, so you don't necessarily have to come back into similar circumstances, then you understand the cycles just like the cycles of nature. Everything is a cycle. Everything is just energy. There's always a beginning, a middle, an end, and a rebirth. And I don't think we in the West are often taught that in a way that we can feel at ease with it.
Well, I agree. I think that's absolutely true. And we, again, tend to shun death. We pretend it's not going to happen to us. It's something that happens to other people. And we're not prepared. We don't, as a culture in this country, we tend not to be prepared to engage with that energy. Now, I've engaged with that energy before, and it's quite powerful. But it's not, how can I say this? It's certainly not a linear experience. I remember one time one of my dogs had passed, my dogs are like my children, and one of my dogs had passed away. And I had another dog at the time, and death in a dream came to me and said it was going to be time for this other dog to pass as well. And I said, no. I I can't deal with that. I said, I can't take it, and no, that is not going to happen. So I just kind of stood up and talked with Death about it in a strong voice, said no. And Death said, okay. So my little dog lived for another 4 months, which I really appreciated and I really needed, because the loss of Zoe, my Great Pyrenees, was devastating to me. And then if Micah had died, my little Shih Tzu, on the other, in the next week within that, it would have been too much. So Death actually, in my dream, said okay. But again, if I had been terrified of death and not had accepted death as the strong and powerful and regal energy that it is, I wouldn't have been able to have that conversation in those extra few months with Micah. So, again, I think it's wonderful the way Oceana has prepared people and has given people things to do along the way. Very, very nice. And it's a very powerful tradition.
Well, in any of the traditions, I think one of the main things is action. Nobody can, like you confronted death in your dream. I made a choice of how to move on. I think you can be given all kinds of prayers and mantras and meditations and self-help books and how-to DVDs, but I think if you wait, for somebody else to do it for you and you don't take the action you need to make the change, then you're not making a choice to change. And I think a lot of people wait for somebody else, or they can't do it because of this or that or the next thing, when really the opportunity is being given to them to make a choice, and that choice will bring change into their life.
Well, that's true, and there are so many opportunities. I mean, for you, it was your big shift came on the heels of a death, but for some people, it comes on the heels of an illness. And they're facing
exactly,
some kind of a serious challenge in health. So it can be any number of things, and if we learn to look at these things for what they are, then I think those opportunities for growth become exponential. And you certainly experienced that. Your whole life is a proof of that, really.
Well, I've had a lot of loss and a lot of death in my life, and each one, whether it was somebody I loved, like my daughter or my brother, or a change in reality when I confronted other things down the line that I speak about later in the book, or even in terms of deep divorces from somebody that, you thought you were going to be with forever. All of those are deaths of some sort, and we all go through them. We do. And, I find so many people, and especially with health challenges today, if they take it as an opportunity for change, then oftentimes the health issue will go away. So it's like they got the lesson, they got the message, they don't need the illness anymore. I've seen that with many people. And I've also seen some people be very angry, thinking that because their illness hasn't gone away, that they aren't doing it right in the New Age model. And I don't think healing always means curing, but I do think when you awaken more consciously and conscientiously to understanding possibly why you're dealing with what you're dealing with, then you can choose to live a different way or certain ways in this particular earth walk, that it's not a punishment. It's just an opportunity for growth and a more fully realized self. And I think that's the maturity of what matters when you make a choice, past whether it's a health issue or how you had a loss in your life, or even down to the mundane things, losing a job, losing your house, losing your pets like you did. You had a choice.
Absolutely. And yes, and it really makes you dig deep, all of these things. If you want the shift and if you want to take that opportunity, you get to dig deep and see what you're made of and see how you're going to make these choices. So you really do get to see what's on the inside when you're faced with some of these big dramatic events that seem to have, nothing good in them. But actually they do. They have gems. It's like a piece of coal, but if you let it form, it turns into a diamond. And again, in your life, you said you were touched by death not once, but several times. In your book, you also talk about your dad's passing, and you had a wonderful conversation with him before he passed.
Yes, he was such a wise man and such a good man, and not all of us are blessed to have parents that listen or parents that can allow you to be so much different than they are and still allow you respect. And my dad was that for me. He was a principal, and I had started out as a special needs teacher. And so as I got more and more into more shamanic counseling, he just couldn't understand why I would give up a good pension job and do what I was doing, because it made no sense to him whatsoever. But when he was passing and everybody had kind of left the room and it was my turn to kind of stay with him for a while, and like anybody who's facing, I guess, their death and contemplating what lies beyond, he told me that he was afraid and he didn't know what was going to be on the other side. And he'd been a very devout Catholic, so I knew that was very hard for him to even admit. And we talked for a long time, and one of the things that I asked him to do at the end, because this had only been probably 3 years after my daughter died, I just asked him to please hug her for me, because that was not something I could do in the flesh anymore. And he kind of lit up and he said, now that I have something to do, I don't think I'm so afraid anymore. I have a purpose. And I didn't even know that I was offering that in my own kind of sadness of, here goes somebody else that means so much to me. And yet he was able to use that kind of as a bridge for himself.
What a gift you gave him.
He gave me many.
Gosh, well, again, you're a very blessed lady. All these wonderful things in your life. My gosh. I mean, I'm just so impressed with the way you embrace this path, because it sounds like earlier in your life you didn't really have much of an experience with any of this stuff.
No, not at all. As a little kid, I had a deep experience with nature, and, all the native teachers, they can consolidate it down into kind of 4 principles. That nature is full of magic and mystery, and that we need to know the elementals, because they are the ones that actually care for us on this earth plane in terms of keeping things in order. And you can see that the order has been knocked out of the elements as we futz more and more with things like chemtrails and fracking and things like that. But as a kid, I really got into the magic of nature until I hit elementary school, and it wasn't a cool thing to talk to the trees and the butterflies and and things of that nature.
That was definitely not cool.
But when you got back into, when I got back into the native teachings and the indigenous wisdom keepers, all of them, no matter whether they were in North, South, or Central America, nature was primary. The ancestors were primary. Because if you don't know your ancestors, you don't know your lineage from whence you've come. Addressing your shadow self was probably the third biggest thing, because once we address our wounds, they can become allies for our greater self-awareness. And then generally the other, I would say, is accountability. Having gratitude and action are important, but accountability in the end is basically what we stand on, who we are as a person. And that kind of road that takes us, like you were saying earlier in your introduction, this time frame that we're in of head and heart and mind, that road from the head to the heart is a very long one for most of us. And it's a very important one for
There's a roadblock up ahead.
Well, and that's kind of what the teachings can help you move the roadblock out of the way.
And that's what you do with people, and we're going to get more into that and more of your exciting life with all of these these really incredible teachers. Just going to take a very short commercial break. Stay tuned, everyone. And if you have a question for Sandy, then call in at 646-478-0828. Again, the number is 646-478-0828. So stay tuned. We will be right back.
Bonjour, this is Veronique Raskin, founder of the Organic Wine Company. As one of the pioneers of the organic wine movement, since 1980 I have brought you the very best and most authentic organic wines directly to your table. I work with small family estates who grow certified organic grapes and produce exceptional wines. You can purchase our wines individually from our website at theorganicwinecompany.com or join one of our wine clubs. Our organic wines are perfect for you and for your family as gifts for friends and relatives, and they are simply spectacular for the holidays. Visit us at theorganicwinecompany.com to enjoy the very best organic wines conveniently delivered to your door. I am Veronique Raskin, passionate about my mission. I offer to you vegan, organic, and biodynamic wines, wines made by people of the heart, wines with a heart. Au revoir. Call us at 1-888-ECO-WINE.
Your property tax bill. Have you seen it lately? It's frightening. Your property taxes are going up while your home value is going down. It's time to fight back and win. For the real truth about the property tax system, get attorney Pat Quintilian's book, Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Attorney Quintilian answers all your questions and gives you the facts you need to fight a property tax bill that is spiraling out of control. You'll also read about what happens to property owners who don't check their property records, only to find out too late they're taxed on square footage, fixtures, and even buildings that they don't own. Is this happening to you? Learn your rights. Buy Attorney Pat Quintilian's book today. Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Available on Amazon.com.
Are you ready for a new experience of freedom and powerful connection? Would you like a positive, effortless change in your life? Then come to CosmicFusion.com, where we offer the most advanced energy clearing and expansion techniques in the world, with a quantum vortex energy to activate your divine blueprint and life's purpose. When your soul leads the way with cosmic fusion and quantum vortex energy, you can break clear of past difficulties and blocks with the power of the source. With Cosmic Fusion, the source energy does the work for you. It's easy and effortless. Listen to our free meditation right from our Cosmic Fusion website, the Cosmic Code Meditation. Sign up for one of our interactive webinars today. Come to Cosmic Fusion, www.KOSMICfusion.com, to experience an effortless awakening and transformation. Are you ready for an upgrade? Are you ready for a new experience of living in the fifth dimensional magic and powerful connection? Then visit CosmicFusion.com today. CosmicFusion.com.
Welcome back, everyone. I am speaking with Sandra Corcoran, the author of a great book, Shamanic Awakening, My Journey Between the Dark and the Daylight. The book is available on Amazon.com. And Sandy, do you have a website that you'd like to give out to everybody?
I do. It is Star Walker Visions, all one word, S on the end of visions.com.
Great. And you practice out of Natick, Massachusetts. And do you also work by phone or Skype, or do people have to come to you in Natick?
No, I work with people all over the U.S., and I do that by phone or in person, depending on, usually I've met the person first because I do workshops both nationally and internationally. So if I've met the person, it's easier to have a rapport. But that said, there are people I've been working with for 3 years that I've never met in the flesh. So it really doesn't matter. It's up to the person to decide if that's a comfortable venue for them.
Okay, well, that's terrific. Now, I do have a question from the chat room. Someone has written in, and they want to know about what Oshana taught you on how to use crystals. How do you work with crystals in your practice or just in your life?
Well, because I'm also a Mesa carrier, and a Mesa carrier is somebody in the South Central Andean tradition that has it's called a Misha. It's similar to a medicine bundle, but it carries different rocks and different crystals. And the way I use them, whether it's the way Oshana taught me or the way I learned in Peru, is to use them as a conduit to either pull out dense energy or to bring in higher levels of energy. So different stones, for example, rose quartz helps if you need to have somebody open up their heart, or if you're working with a child. Children really gravitate to the rose quartz. If you need to help ground somebody, you might use smoky quartz or hematite. And so depending on what the person's issue is, whether it's an emotional issue, a physical issue, a mental issue, you can use the stones and the crystals to help clear the energy field of either dense or energy or bring in more refined energy. Most native traditions don't see it as dark and light. They see it more as a single spectrum of energy that moves from dense to refined energy. And so you're always trying to do one or the other in the light body template around the physical body.
And when you work with people in this manner with crystals, you can treat anything. You can treat emotional blockages, physical, mental blockages, correct?
Well,
you can use that. You can use it to work with any of those.
Yes, because it's like anything else you're going to use. It is a conductor of energy, and it's a way to open up the person's field so that you can gain more access to that energy. You're not actually doing the curing of them, but you're bearing witness to how that vibration is helping them to be more cognizant and conscientious and be able to change the way they hold the wound or the way they hold the issue within themselves. So in a similar fashion, whether you're using certain kinds of feathers or certain kinds of angel guidance or certain kinds of crystals or your mesa, those are all accoutrements to open up the energies or get deeper into the energies. Essentially, they're tools, but if you can't do that work without the tools, say you show up at some point and you need to do a healing with somebody and you don't have your mesa and you don't have your crystals and you don't have whatever your accoutrements are, you still have to be able to identify and resource the energy to help them carry it in a different way. So those things are very important. They're very beautiful, some of them, but you really need to learn how to use the energy even without the accoutrement.
That's interesting. And you had other teachers besides Oshana, and one of them was Twyla Neach.
Yes, Graham Twy was my longest and dearest mentor. I think she held a mirror to my face better than anybody else I've worked with. She was an incredible woman of such grace and such humor and such wisdom. And she and her mother, Blue Flower, had formulated a body of work that she taught through the Wolf Clan Teaching Lodge. And it was actually psychological tools based on wisdom wheels or the medicine wheel. Mm-hmm. And it helped people to have a better understanding and utilize their gifts of birth and their latent talents. So wherever you came in on the wisdom wheel was the lesson you were working at the time, but the whole idea was to stand in the center of the wheel where you could address any one of the spokes, or let's say the numbers on a clock, if you want to look at it that way, and deal with the lessons of that particular area of the medicine wheel. And it was very multi-leveled. I mean, there were cycles of truth and pathways of peace, but it just got deeper and deeper and deeper into the psyche, and it was a fabulous tool. Her people were from the Iroquois Five Nations people, and the Seneca were the original philosophers of that group of people. And I'm saying people because the natives, the indigenous people, the First Nations people usually refer to themselves as the people.
Now, she was very generous, again, with you, as Oceana was, with her teachings, and she also was expecting you, just like Oceana was.
Yes. That was a very weird set of circumstances. I had called looking to take a workshop with her. I had heard about her for a number of years. And at the time, there was a wonderful place in Boston called Interface, and they used to bring in some wonderful people. And she, I guess, had canceled, but they gave me a number. They didn't know where the number rang to. It was kind of scribbled in the notes, and she hadn't called back to reschedule another time. So I kind of grabbed the number and called her, and without the phone even ringing, she picked up. And I was so startled, I said, "Who is this?" And she said to me, you called me. You should know who you're calling. And when I told her, my name is Sandy, she said, "Oh, I've been waiting for you to call. You can come up in 2 weeks." So again, it was one of those moments of resistance and awe and what is this next path taking me down? But, at that point, I had learned to accept the adventures life was handing me, and gratefully, I can only say that she was a powerful woman of heart, and nothing escaped her.
Yes, I also got a chance to talk to her one time, and it was memorable. She was so full of light, and
yes.
She was lighthearted. She was light-filled. And, I mean, for some Native American medicine men that I had met, they carried some resentment, about what had happened to the Native people, and it became something that some of them that I had known could never really get past.
I think that's true. I did encounter that with some Native peoples, but most of the ones I had the opportunity to meet they wanted the teachings to be passed on. They all had traditions where people of other colors and other creeds would be coming to them around that time and their own prophecies. And for that,
was
to share.
Definitely, she was somebody who didn't carry, as far as I could tell, any of that resentment. I mean, she just was filled with light, and she wanted to pass it on, like you said, and as Oceana did as well. So they weren't so caught up with lineage and, are you a part of this tribe or that kind of thing. They were looking for your heart.
Yes, and likewise, I had good men teachers like that. Grandfather Wallace Black Elk and Sun Bear, and many of them came at a time when it was ripe to pass out the teachings. I do think one of the sad things that has happened, we in the West are prone to kind of layer the teachings. And I've noticed over the last 30 years that a lot of people bring different impact, different additions, different changes to the rituals and the teachings. And it's not that things don't grow and change. I think, that's important too. But I think it's important when you are given a teaching to adhere to the foundation from which it came. And if you're going to add something to it, stand in your own power and say, I'm adding this to it, but this is the basic foundation of the teaching. And I think that's why you see a lot of indigenous people get upset, because their lineages, their teachings, their traditions are being changed and watered down and new aged, and that's kind of not always a cool thing.
No, it isn't. I agree with you. If you're going to change something, say that this is the foundation, but this is the direction I'm going to take this in, which is different from the original teaching. So then everybody knows what it is and where it came from and where it's going. So, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Now, I have another question from the chat room. Somebody's written in and they're saying, do you feel if one is ready for a teacher, they will come even if you don't go out in search of them?
Yes, and I also feel the biggest teacher is within ourselves, and that so many of us look for a doctor, lawyer, and Indian chief to give us a message about our inner self, and it really is about us having the courage to go within. I mean, it's wonderful to sit in front of a pyramid or to have an indigenous teacher or, if you're a religious person, to have a beautiful set of rosary beads from Rome or any of those things. But really, we all hold the keys within ourselves, and the perfection we already seek is already within ourselves. And I think the biggest thing we're afraid of, humanity is so frail, but life is so beautiful, and if we are allowed to grow ourselves by looking at all those parts of ourselves and not rejecting them, then really, if you look at it, the biggest fear we have is standing in our own light. And
that's true.
Though your caller is asking, will the teacher come? Yes, I do believe the teacher will come, but sometimes we look for a teacher in a different garb. Sometimes it can be our child. Sometimes it can be our neighbor. Sometimes it can be the milkman.
Mm-hmm. Or like we've been talking about, sometimes the teacher is death, sometimes the teacher is a health crisis, sometimes the teacher is a divorce.
That's beautifully said, yes.
So that's what can happen, and it's just, again, the way you're going to, if you are going to, and I love your vision here of standing in the middle and choosing these different aspects of yourself that you want to refine or that you want to work on, instead of being buffeted about like you're in a dinghy on the ocean and just waiting for the next catastrophe to hit. So it does create a whole other sense of stability and power when you're looking at your life from that perspective that you've described so beautifully.
Hello?
Yeah, I just finished talking.
And I forgot to start.
No, I think we were just letting it all sink in. I was thinking today about the show that Becky Andreasson and I do, and that before Becky, I had worked with Helene Olsen, who's a very talented psychic medium, and this show is really about transformation. And when people listen to what you have to say as a guest and what we've had to say as hosts and co-hosts, people can change just from listening to this. It's that profound. And what you've written about in this fabulous book is just like that. It is about transformation. So anybody can read this book and reach deep within themselves and feel things change and move. And that's fabulous. And again, the name of your book is Shamanic Awakening, My Journey Between the Dark and the Daylight. And now, we talked a lot about death. I didn't mean to be morbid in any way, but it is a powerful energy, and it does carve you out like nothing else on the inside. But you also had a wonderful and miraculous experience with the birth of your second daughter.
Yes, and she is still my best friend to this day, and that's a hard thing to say for two women growing up when you have to go through all the changes that we both have gone through. She's an amazing woman and really cuts deep to the chase. She's another one that takes no prisoners.
My.
I was able to conceive her in a ceremony. I had a lot of difficulty holding my pregnancies. And she, unbeknownst to me, I mean, I know I did the conception ceremony with my husband at the time, but I did not know I was pregnant with her, and I did not know that for 3 months into the pregnancy. And so on a trip to California to see some dear friends, I I had been very, very sick, and my friend had just actually moved there, so she took me to the only doctor she had, which was her GYN. And I was quite surprised when I was told I was almost 4 months pregnant. And he was quite wise.
What exciting news for you. My goodness.
Oh, it was so exciting. But, you know, he was very sage. A lot of times you don't give doctors that human quality because you're in and out of the offices so fast. But he basically said, you know, your body tried to protect what your mind didn't need to know until everything was settled. So you didn't go into fear and all of that. And
that's such a wise statement. When I read that in your book, I had to stop because it was a very powerful thing that he said to you.
Yes, yes. And I saw him only that once and never saw him again. And as women, we know what it involves to have an internal, so it's an odd way to meet somebody and never see them again.
Right. Oh, my goodness. And then you had other ceremonies that were given to you that you performed with your daughter as she got older, and they were all remarkable. And then as a result, too, I mean, you talk in your book about these incredible experiences that she had with water spirits and also aliens.
Yes. We have both had encounters with extra or interdimensional energies. When I first came to, I guess, the belief that they existed, I had a literal encounter with them, as did she that same night. And it wasn't until a couple of years later that I met Dr. John Mack, who at that time was running a program with Roberta Colasante called PEER. It was the program for experiential research. And they were giving a star conference with all kinds of people from the field, pro and con, those that believed, those that didn't. And at that particular conference, I recognized somebody out of this world, literally, from the ships. And they worked with us for the next couple of years. It was such a deep and different experience that, you know, it changed my entire worldview. My daughter, on the other hand, would go with me to some of these things, and she would write. I remember one workshop with J.J. Hurtak in New York. She was only 6 or 7, and she sat throughout the entire workshop in the front row just making all these symbols on paper.
Oh, my.
And Hurtak came over to her at the end, and he said to all of us, "This is what I'm talking about. The young ones already know." And when she got to be 12, she decided she never wanted to talk about it again.
Really?
And hasn't. Yeah. It became too much for her, I think, for the same reason with all of us. You know, you get to those preteen years and you want to belong. You know, now that she's older, we can talk about different things, but it's still something that upsets her. And I think it upsets a lot of people who possibly have had encounters and contacts that don't understand that they, you know, you might have signed up for this and it might be actually for your greater good, but that sense of not having control is very frightening to a lot of people. And it took me a long time to understand it, too. So I give her the space she needs around the topic.
Yeah, well, that's understandable. Now, I've got another question here from the chat room. They want to know what the ETs looked like.
There were many. There were different ones. Some were, of course, what we call the grays, taller ones and shorter ones. Some were long, golden-haired, blue-eyed, quite tall. Some had long, pointed skulls. I mean, I've encountered a couple of different species. I don't know what is your person looking for? Do you know?
I think just what you described. You know, it sounds like some of them might have been the Pleiadians. They're usually the pretty ones, and then then there's the grays, and then there's some of them that kind of look a little reptilian, and There's certainly a lot of different species, and I wish Becky was here. My goodness, this is her thing. She would talk to you about all of this till the end of the night. And again, it's fascinating to so many people, but as you mentioned, a lot of people are afraid because they do feel out of control. Many of these races of extraterrestrials or interdimensionals are very advanced, and they do know how to do mind control, and they can move us from point A to point B pretty much without our permission. So, yeah, there's a lot of emotion that goes along with this, and also a lot of mystery. So we don't know whether we should trust it or not.
Yes, and I think, what's funny is we're about the only nation that hasn't exposed the fact that in an overt way, almost every other nation has talked about and opened up their books on the subject. And we have so much in this country that, everything from Barney and Betty Hill to Area 51 to Dulce Air Force Base to Wright-Patterson, that people, I think, know, but nobody says outright. And it's that covert part that I think keeps people frightened. I could go on and on as well about this subject all night, but suffice it to say,
I think you're right. I think it is the covert aspect. There's been a lot of disinformation campaigns. We've certainly had on the show a number of very informed people, some of them former military, who have come forward and said, yes, these things are real. In fact, one of our guests was hired by the military to go out and make abductees look foolish and undermine their credibility. So he admitted that on the air and said, this is what I was paid to do. So, yeah, you're right about that. And, who wants to face that kind of ridicule? And besides that, and I think this is the most important point about extraterrestrial contact, what do you do with it at the end of the day? I mean, I think you're one of the lucky people and also one of the talented people who can accept it as another life form and communicate with it effectively, but so many people don't know what to do with it. It's not like you can talk about it over morning coffee with your neighbor. It just doesn't seem to fit. So
no.
It makes it very, very hard. And here's another question from the chat room for you. They wanted to know, were most of the extraterrestrials or the interdimensionals that you met friendly?
Yes. Or let me put it this way. I didn't always like what was being shown me or sometimes being done to me, but I have come to understand that somehow I was part of that, not as an experiment, but part of that as growing consciously. And if we're all evolving back to the one, it's not just us on this planet. As this planet is ascending, so is every other planet in our hemisphere, and all those other beings out there. And there are some, for lack of a better term, of denser or negative origin, and some that aren't. But all of those are also ascending back to the one. So if it comes down to, on this planet, all the fights we're having with race, color, and creed, if you just expand that to the next level of inter and extra dimensionals, then at some point, every single species has to learn to get along, to get to that higher legion of light that we all have the capability of getting back to.
That's a tall order, huh?
It's a real tall order, and you can see why it's so hard and so fragile, and why many of us don't always make the right choice.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of confusion out there. And as you mentioned, with all waiting here for disclosure that doesn't seem to come in the United States, so we're left with a lot of unanswered questions. I don't think it's fair at all that things are left so under cover. It just these are our tax dollars at work. It just doesn't even make sense to me. But anyways, you also took this experience that you had with extraterrestrial or interdimensional contact and your daughter, you had it that same night, and then you contacted Twyla. And what did she tell you?
Well, Twyla told me what probably every other mentor told me, and that is that the indigenous people have a long history of contact, that they have a long history of myths and information passed down about contact, that that contact will continue to go on, whether we want to admit it governmentally or not. And unfortunately, I think our government is using some of it in a negative way. She told me about different races, and most of my Native teachers, a lot of them thought that we had been contacted from Sirius and the Pleiadians, and Andromeda and Ganymede, and they all had different stories to tell me about how their people had history going back. One of the interesting things, as you look now, and this might be a little off topic to what you were going towards, but if you look now at the planet and how it's kind of in wobble and spin and how magnetic north has changed, and the solar flares that are absolutely heating up the inside of our planet, the Native people believe that, the Earth has flipped on its axis about 14 times in the millennial history of the Earth. And then the Lakota people used to remember a time when the sun rose in the west.
Wow.
So
different.
As you think about that, all of these cycles are not new. They're all cycles that have happened before. They're only new to our consciousness in this moment.
Right.
So going back to the off-planet races, they're only new to us because we are just awakening to them over these last 50, 60 years, but they've been on this planet forever. And you even go back to medieval times and you can see paintings with very distinct ships in them. You can go back to the hieroglyphs on the Egyptian pyramids and see aircraft that are only now coming about out of our military. And those pyramids, some say 3,000 years, but many say older. I think this has always been part of us. I think this is part of our DNA.
I agree with you. Yes, I think that's true. I mean, there's stories about the Anunnaki. We had a guest on who had written a book about DNA of the gods, and she spoke very eloquently about this. And certainly we are descendants of the genetic manipulation that they did. And there's a lot of evidence to support that. Why we want to deny it, I don't know. It just seems logical to me if you look at our timeline and our development as to where we are now. So we're going to take another short... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say we're going to take another very short commercial break. We've got more questions lining up in the chat room for you, Sandy. And I want to also talk to you about anything else you want to talk about, but also our listeners want to hear about your experience in Peru with the medicine people there, because it was a little bit different than what you experienced with your Native American teachers here in North America. So hang on, everybody. Stay tuned, and we will be right back with this fascinating discussion, this great guest, Sandy Corcoran, and her fabulous book, Shamanic Awakening, My Journey Between the Dark and the Daylight. We'll be right back.
Are you ready for a new experience of freedom and powerful connection? Would you like a positive, effortless change in your life? Then come to CosmicFusion.com, where we offer the most advanced energy clearing and expansion techniques in the world, with a quantum vortex energy to activate your divine blueprint and life's purpose. When your soul leads the way with cosmic fusion and quantum vortex energy, you can break clear of past difficulties and blocks with the power of the Source. With cosmic fusion, the Source energy does the work for you. It's easy and effortless. Listen to our free meditation right from our Cosmic Fusion website, the Cosmic Code Meditation. Sign up for one of our interactive webinars today. Come to Cosmic Fusion, www.kosmicfusion.com, to experience an effortless awakening and transformation. Are you ready for an upgrade? Are you ready for a new experience of living in the fifth dimensional magic and powerful connection? Then visit CosmicFusion.com today. CosmicFusion.com.
Your property tax bill. Have you seen it lately? It's frightening. Your property taxes are going up while your home value is going down. It's time to fight back and win. For the real truth about the property tax system, get attorney Pat Quintilian's book, Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Attorney Quintilian answers all your questions and gives you the facts you need to fight a property tax bill that is spiraling out of control. You'll also read about what happens to property owners who don't check their property records, only to find out too late they're taxed on square footage, fixtures, and even buildings that they don't own. Is this happening to you? Learn your rights. Buy attorney Pat Quintilian's book today. Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Available on Amazon.com.
Bonjour, this is Veronique Raskin, founder of the Organic Wine Company. As one of the pioneers of the organic wine movement, since 1980 I have brought you the very best and most authentic organic wines directly to your table. I work with small family estates who grow certified organic grapes and produce exceptional wines. You can purchase our wines individually from our website at theorganicwinecompany.com or join one of our wine clubs. Our organic wines are perfect for you and for your family as gifts for friends and relatives, and they are simply spectacular for the holidays. Visit us at theorganicwinecompany.com to enjoy the very best organic wines conveniently delivered to your door. I am Veronique Raskin, passionate about my mission. I offer to you vegan, organic, and biodynamic wines, wines made by people of the heart, wines with a heart. Au revoir. Call us at 1-888-ECO-WINE.
Welcome back, everyone. I am speaking with Sandra Corcoran tonight. She is the author of Shamanic Awakening. And Sandy, I'm going to start right off the bat with another question from our chat room. And they're writing, do you think that the fifth dimension reality is going to change everything soon?
Do I think that the fifth dimensional reality is going to change everything soon?
Yes.
Is that what the question is?
Yes.
I think we have, after the whole 2012 lineup, we passed into the first stage of the new paradigm. I think, like at any beginning stage, though we have some people will have the capacity to step right into it, I think for any of us it's going to be a learning curve. So as you can see now, and you just talked about some of the configurations coming up, bookend by the two eclipses, the lunar and the solar, and then the Grand Cross. Mm-hmm. I think what's happening is the energies are shifting. One of the things I've noticed is how chaotic everybody is feeling. I don't think you can pass into fifth dimension in that chaotic, upset state. And I do think that we're being challenged now to hold that kind of peace of mind and that empowered state of centeredness. And every time we find ourselves off of it again, coming back into centeredness, whatever that takes for us, prayer or meditation or just a quiet breath. I think like the ages that grow, the dimension and our ability to hold the substance and vibration and frequency of it will grow. And I think to be able to do that in a physical body is hard, but that's the whole lesson, I think, in my own personal opinion, of fifth dimensional reality, is being able to ascend while you're still in body. Mm-hmm. Graham used to talk about it in terms of we'd see things changing dramatically, but if we got caught up in the fear of the changes instead of the potential of change, that we weren't going to be in a centered place to be able to walk into that frequency. So I think it's dependent on each of us to keep coming back and coming back and coming back to center again in the midst of the chaos. And I think that is probably one of the hardest things for humanity. If we can't do it in our own relationships and in our own families, and we all
then
have trouble
sunk.
with that. No, I don't believe we're sunk. I believe
if we can't do
that not everybody will.
We are.
I don't think everybody will move into the next dimension, but I do think people have been doing their homework and their self-work, and though it's fragile, whatever groundwork we're laying now, we're laying for our children and our children's children, hopefully, and that's why it's so important to be accountable and to deal with the shadow, because that won't go away if we don't deal with it.
Well, the shadow is very important in our healing, and as you mentioned, we have to embrace it. We have to get to know what's going on with it. We can't ignore it, because if we do, it just gets, what happens? It gets stronger, gets more powerful, it kind of takes over.
Exactly. And yet we might not like it. I mean, burying it, putting it in the closet, pretending it doesn't exist, claiming we don't have it as part of our makeup, doesn't allow us to take it out and look at it. I don't think that we all necessarily have to love our shadow, but I think we have to at least see the lesson that it helped us learn. And in that way, it's not that dog barking at our feet anymore.
Right, or biting us.
Or biting us.
Exactly. Now, you had some really remarkable experiences in Peru. You met some very talented healers, and it sounded like it was a very similar experience to what Castaneda wrote about with the filaments of light and some of the other things. Can you tell us about that? It sounds like quite an adventure.
I think each stage of the way I was growing, and dreaming is a big part of who I am, what my work is, what my, I believe one of my gifts are. And I had been having a dream since the time I was little about being in this beautiful place and dancing on this beautiful mountain and all these colorful feathers and plants. And when I was working with Graham Twyla, I explained it to her, and by that time I certainly knew it was the mountain Huayna Picchu, that it's on the grounds of Machu Picchu. And she suggested that it was really time for me, after working with the different women up here, the 4 different women up here, to start to work with the men. And she thought that the best place to start would be in South America because of my dream. So I joined a journey with somebody who's quite well known in the field, bringing people to Peru, and he's been doing it for hundreds of years. Not literally, but many years. And
many lifetimes.
Many lifetimes, I believe. But he was clearly not my teacher, and when I got down there, I happened to meet one of my teachers. And what I love about the pure teachings of the South Central Andean mystical tradition is that everything is included in what they call the Kausai Pacha, or the world of living energies. And that world of living energies has no distinction really between the waking and the dreaming states, and yet there are 3 levels within it, and they're called the Hanak Pacha, the Kai Pacha, and the Uhu Pacha. And each one of those is a level that can be compared to Jung's unconscious, conscious, and superconscious selves. So in learning in each of those levels and all the different rituals and traditions that come with that as well, it's quite detailed and deep. I was able to learn new aspects, but also really there was such a passion from the first time my feet hit Peru that I really got that if people believe in past lives, and I do, that I had to have had some rich experiences there because of just how natural it all came to me and how familiar it all felt to me. And so
you had a Shaktipat experience there, right?
Yeah, yes, I did.
That was amazing.
To this day, I kind of still laugh about it because a lot of times when you're in that moment of kind of being out of body but still in awareness, you don't quite know where your feet are.
Yeah.
And in that particular situation, I had met one of the Caddo people, are the people from the high Andes there, and I had met my first Caddo elder. He had come to be part of the work we were doing in a particular location. And he just put his third head to mine. He didn't speak my language. I didn't speak his. But the light that went off in my head was all-encompassing, and at the same time, it just connected me to him, to the cosmos, with information. And I was very ungrounded after that for a while until I realized what was happening. And I think what was happening is I was actually being downloaded, not necessarily from him, but by information from within myself from those other lifetimes.
Yeah, now that is an interesting explanation of Shaktipat that you also wrote about in your book, that it was a reflection of you. So it's like he wasn't taking credit for any of it. He just said, I'm just reflecting back to you, your own connection.
Exactly.
Is that right? Okay. That's great.
Yes.
So that really, again, and this is a theme that went through all of the teachings, that it just kept putting you back into your own self, into your own power. So it's a very different experience that you had, say, in juxtaposition to somebody who had a guru, in quotes, and followed that person as a wise person or their ways. These people that you worked with, Oshana and Twyla, and these men in the Andes and other people along the way, always kept putting you back into your own sense of power and connection. That's great.
Right. They didn't want me, Oshana used to say, don't stand in my shadow. Graham Twyla used to say, stand on my shoulders. One of my teachers in Peru said, I don't need your power, you need your power. And I think we have a propensity to give our power away to the teacher, to the guru, to the shaman. And that, I think one of the nuggets all of my teachers gave me that was so wonderful is they would always say, well, does that resonate for you? Even if it means you need to argue about what I just taught you, if you come from a place of your center, then stand in your power, because I'm not giving you my power, and I certainly don't want your power. So they always encouraged me to shift my awareness back to, how does this resonate in you? Is this something you want to follow? Is this a teaching that makes sense to you? I'm having one of my mentors, Juan Nunez del Prado, will be coming up here in May. It's the first time he's going to be coming to the East Coast, probably in 12, 13 years. Wow. And he'll be doing a 4-day teaching up here. If any of your audience is interested, there's still openings. And they can take the 2-day or the 4-day.
How would they be able to sign up? Would they go to your Starwalker website?
Yes, they can email me at sandy@starwalkervisions.com, or they can leave me a voice message at 508-435-2681. And
this is going to take place, Sandy, where?
This will be in Natick, Massachusetts. It'll be at the place where I have my office, which is called Roots and Wings Yoga and Healing Arts Center. It's a beautiful place in Natick. There's about 26 practitioners in there of pretty much any modality you can pick. And we all have either shared offices, there's workshop spaces, there's yoga rooms, And I think one of the most amazing things, and maybe other people can say this about their centers and places of work too, but we all work together and recommend to each other, and there's none of this, you're taking my client, or now they're not going to come see me. It's such an amazing group of people, men and women. I haven't encountered anything like that in all the different places I've lived before.
That's beautiful, and we all know that the ego can rear its little ugly head at any time, and so if you have a group of people that have that in check or have embraced that in a whole new way, then it makes working together so pleasurable. So that's wonderful. Now, how much is the workshop? Tell us, please, what the charge would be for that. You said it's 4 days.
Yes. If they just want to take the first 2 days, it's $295, and if they want to take all 4 days, it's $495. And Juan will be coming with his son, Ivan, who is also a Paco, also a teacher in the tradition, teaches with him all over Europe and in South America. And just wonderful people, so learned, so adhering to the pure teachings of the Indian tradition, just very wise, and a lot of humor will be going down. So it would be wonderful if anybody wants to join us.
It sounds terrific. I wish you were a little bit closer to where I am, because I know I would enjoy meeting these two healers and learning a lot about the Indian tradition. I mean, it sounds like it would be a lot of fun for sure. So, yes, anybody who would like to do that, please contact Sandy. And her website again is?
starwalkervisions.com.
And your email is there. So that would be great for people to experience that. I think it would be absolutely wonderful. And tell us a little bit more about what you learned in Peru from some of these teachers. There was a lot that went on in your journey throughout Peru.
Yes. I think one of the beautiful concepts down there is the concept of Aini, which is reciprocity. Mm-hmm. And that sense of within the communities, within the basic needs of the communities, that it's not about one-upmanship and superiority. For instance, if you and I run to the top of the hill and I win, I have to teach you how to beat me the next time. Because the simplicity of their lifestyle is that, it's in a very remote and cold and barren kind of area. They have a lot of deaths with their children and with their llama flocks. And in a similar fashion to, I think, what happened to the indigenous population here in North America is, you're assigned to these remote areas, sort of, or that's where you've chosen to live to escape things. And yet as more and more people come for the teachings and they want to be able to teach you, then what happens in the next generation is the kids don't want to stay there. They want to come down into the cities, and they want their Nike sneakers, and they want their TV sets, and it really starts to change the flavor of exactly why people are drawn to these areas. And it's such a juxtaposition of how do you take care of that? How do you bring in fresh water and sanitation and all of that, and at the same time don't lose the flavor of the magic and mystery of the simplicity of what these people have to teach. So it's always a balancing act.
Difficult. It's so difficult because the Madison Avenue advertising seems to leak and find its way into all parts of the world, even remote parts of Peru these days, and it remains a big challenge, which is difficult. But again, you were lucky enough to meet some healers who had a lot of integrity and again kept leading you back to the power source that lives inside of you. And again, what a great experience. But I want to ask you about psychedelic plants, because I know we had a wonderful guest on our show talking about ayahuasca, and he was in Peru, and he actually leads people on these experiences and these journeys with ayahuasca. Now, did you have any experiences with those types of plants when you were there?
I did. I've had I've gone through the sacred plant medicine in both San Pedro and ayahuasca, and they're different experiences, but they are both experiences that take you outside the realms of the ego and the physical self. They, in my experience anyway, they connect you to kind of the web of life in an entirely different way, where you're not just an observer, you are literally part of it. And even though you are minuscule, you recognize that, when you look into that dewdrop, you are part of the whole. And it's, to me, it was a powerful experience doing both of those rituals. Now, obviously, they're not done recreationally. If you're doing in the Southwest a peyote ceremony, you do that with a roadman. If you do San Pedro, you do that with somebody who's been trained. If you're doing ayahuasca in the jungle, you do it with an ayahuascarian, because they know, for example, the ayahuascarians know how to sing the icaros, the songs that lead you through the journey and can help balance you when you hit those rocky places of moving into a different awareness or a different dimensionality.
Yeah, so that's very important, and that's something that we learned from listening to our guest about ayahuasca, that it's not the kind of thing that could ever become a recreational drug. It's just not that type of thing. And this is really and truly, these in San Pedro you mentioned also, which is a cactus, right?
Yes, it is.
That both of these are truly meant to help people achieve higher consciousness and that understanding of the fractal nature of the universe. So that's what they're for, and it's not the kind of thing you're going to pay money for on the street to have some quick high. It's not that way. So it's wonderful that you got to have those experiences as well. And now, you mentioned also another experience that you had of death with your brother. When did that happen? In all of this, was this before or after Peru, or when did this take place?
Oh no, it was in 9/11, and I had already been in Peru. I've been working in Peru since '91. What can I say about 9/11? It touched everybody, and yet when it happened to the individual families, it will never be that kind of private death. It will always be that very public death.
Yes.
Very clearly, no race, color, or creed is to be blamed. There are people that have dark energies in their heart, and that can be any race, color, or creed. And, 9/11 will, I think, forever stick in our psyches kind of the way in our parents' generation Pearl Harbor did.
Right.
So, yeah, and the irony of that one is I had a dream about 2 years before, almost exactly to the day. And it was startling, though it was a short snippet of a dream, as I could remember it upon awakening, and didn't put it into context until I was going through my dream journals to write the book. I didn't realize how exact it was to even the plain colors that had happened that day, because American had a red tail and United had a gray tail, and those were kinds of some of the observations that I picked up in my dream.
Now your
and my brother was.
What happened?
He was on the second plane. That film footage plays over and over again, but he was supposed to go out the next day, and unbeknownst to any of us but his wife and my mom, he was in the Merchant Marines, and he would take the runs that went to Southeast Asia from San Francisco. And so there was an opening on his ship. He was the head engineer on his ship, and there was an opening, and his best friend, who he'd graduated with from the academy, needed a job, and he was going out a day early to help his friend get the job.
Goodness.
Yeah. And
my goodness.
That was just a very, very tough day.
Well, yes. I mean, that whole experience is so horrific and shocking and left so much in its wake. But certainly, again, this for you became another opportunity to dig deeper and continue on with your path. So, again, this was as horrible as it was, another experience of life and death that, again, brings you closer to your own center, to your own being. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the irony of that is I was starting to move away from doing the teachings, and that kind of put my feet again back on the path. Because I had to heal myself. It does seem like you're meant
to do this, Sandy.
Kicking and screaming some years, but yes.
Goodness. Well, and I think, too, when I was reading your book, I was thinking I've known a lot of very talented psychics and mediums and things like that in my life. And some of them have really gotten caught up in the ego of it all. I'm the best, I'm this, I'm that. And certainly they could easily say that. But when ego gets involved, it can make a mess of so many things. And I didn't feel that from you. I certainly don't feel that talking to you, but I also didn't feel that from you anywhere in your book, even though it was very clear that you were chosen by these very special and very powerful healers. They expected you. They were waiting for you. I mean, that doesn't happen to everybody. But I didn't sense any ego about it. It was just like, to you, it was like, oh, I'm so surprised by that. And then on to the next thing. So, good for you.
Well, I know and I thank you for that. And without hubris, I have to say I really do try to pull myself up short if I see myself kind of dipping onto that side of the cliff, because most of my teachers always taught that we all have to go through that third level where ego defines, but you can't stay there if you continue to grow or if you want to continue to grow. And that's part of what I was saying earlier on in the evening about accountability. I have such gratitude for how my life has been and the grace of the people who have taught me, even though the things that brought me to most of them brought me to my knees. But to be accountable to the fact that that we all have a journey and that it's all dark sometimes. But you can't stay there. If you want to keep growing and consciously ascending, you just can't stay there because there's no support for you in the darkness other than a new path. And the new path leads you in a new direction.
I love that, what you just said. That's really beautiful, and it's very inspirational to people in our audience who are listening tonight who may be going through a tough time, that there is a new path awaiting them. It's not all darkness, and they just have to choose to take that first step onto that path.
And that they don't need a special drum or ayahuasca ceremony or rosary beads from Rome or a mesa or a Native American teacher. They don't need that we're all here to teach each other, and at some point we're all teachers and at some point we're all students, and no matter what we're trying to learn, the best place to begin is where you find yourself, because we'll always be at the beginning of something. That's how we learn. And if you get into that place of somebody does it better than you, or somebody's intuitive hit is stronger than yours, or you're not empowered enough to make the change in yourself, then you're not doing the work you came here to do. We're each a unique expression of divinity, and our promise was to live that as best we could. And sometimes we do that in the simplest and most naive of ways, and that's exactly what we're supposed to be doing.
That's right. That's right. I mean, we're all here on different journeys, trying to learn kind of the same things. So, and nobody ever knows really how hard it is for the person sitting next to them. So, we need to have a lot of compassion there. But let me ask you a question about your practice. So, when someone comes to you, and they want to work with you as a shamanic. You would be their shamanic counselor. Tell me what happens in a session. What do you do with them?
Well, I wear a lot of different hats, so it would depend on what it is they were looking to do. I can do straight counseling with them if that's where they find themselves. If they just want to come through and have a breakthrough moment, we might do a soul retrieval. I don't have to have worked with you before to do that. Some people come to do a series of Psych K sessions, which is a way of balancing the right and left hemispheres of the brain and the conscious and unconscious and ego-conscious parts of the self. So say you want to work on something like quitting smoking or getting a new job, that might be one place to start. I do susto healings, which is a tradition from northern Peru that uses a very unique combination of things. It's staffs and candles and eggs to extract dense energy from the body, and deals with. And sustos are known as first wounds, and it's not like original sin first wounds. First wounds are things that happen either in your lineage, in the womb, or when you're first born that can cause a schism in your light body and then start to attract other dense energies that hold you back from the full potential of yourself. And it's not the same as soul retrieval, but it works on the same premise as soul retrievals. Mm-hmm. And some people just come to me for Thoth Tarot readings. I do the Tarot, and so it all depends on what somebody wants to do. If it's long-term or just, coming in for one shot like the soul retrieval, and then they decide down the line, well, they want to do deeper and more work with me, then they might come back. So for everybody it's different, and yet for everybody it's similar. So I just take people where they start.
Tell us about what you do in a session with the soul retrieval technique.
Soul retrieval is a millennial-old technique, which kind of shows how well it works because it hasn't changed much over thousands of years. And different practitioners do it in different ways. The way I do it is through what I call the STAR process, which is Soul Transmissions and Retrievals. It's an acronym for that myself and a healing partner at the time, 15, 20 years ago, started to do. It's a methodology where you go into the person's past in this life, where the wounds that they've experienced, consciously or unconsciously, have affected how they present. Sometimes it takes you into past lives. The way I do it, it's about 2 hours. It's a very deep, intense healing, but the other person is totally active because I believe they're a shaman in their own right, too, or a healer in their own right, or an aware individual in their own right. The cool thing, since I started working in these realms 30 years ago, is there's been a growing body of evidence that our thoughts and our emotions and our environment influence our psychological state, even down to our DNA in terms of which genes get turned on and off. So, everybody from physicists to biologists to organic chemists, neuroscientists, the newer fields of epigenetics and mind-body-heart coherence, they're all actually now supporting the belief and the experience of shamanic practitioners in that it's the imbalance in the different energy bodies that affect the luminous layers of vibrating energy and the filaments that make up each of us. So impacting our life source energy affects our well-being. So that concept of soul retrieval, which hasn't changed very much over the centuries, it shows the potency of how that can be used as a healing. I experienced something with a friend of mine once in Peru with this doctor from Dallas, and no offense to Dallas, kept saying to him, well, I'm a brain surgeon. I can go in and take, the tumor out of your brain. I'm a brain surgeon. I can go and take the tumor out of your brain.
And good for you.
The elder wasn't saying anything. And finally at the end he said, that is a wonderful gift that you have, that you can go into somebody's brain and take out the tumor. But when that person is crossing, I can go take their soul and help them come back to this body. Can you do that? And so soul retrieval isn't about, stopping somebody from dying, but it is helping them recover the lost aspects of their bright and shiny self that they had brought with them in their initial birth here to actuate something here in this lifetime of their own purpose. So that's how I see soul retrieval.
Well, it sounds very exciting, and it certainly makes a lot of sense to me because there is so much that we might encounter even in the birth process. I mean, gosh, 40, 50 years ago, all the mothers were anesthetized, and so it was a very unnatural type of a situation for birth, and babies ended up with birth trauma, and that was highly
Absolutely.
documented. So,
absolutely.
So I can just see right there. Here we are, all pre-verbal. Not an easy thing to go back and shift and change. So soul retrieval actually has the power to help that.
And one of the things that they're discovering now, and astrologers could probably tell you this, is about 3 months out from birth, the soul actually doesn't flip back in and out anymore. It stays in those last final stages, those last 180 days. And whatever the family or the mother or the constellation of the family was going through at that point energetically impacts the baby. So that sometimes they act out things in this life that aren't even theirs, but they don't know why they're carrying it. They're not even conscious of it, but it started in utero pre-birth. And that kind of stuff comes up a lot in soul retrievals too. And when the client checks back in with the parent, those things were going on with the parent. And the child never even knew that. So they were carrying something that wasn't even theirs.
And what a burden for them. And also what a great sense of freedom to have that lifted in this type of work of soul retrieval. That's a real powerful form of work that can get rid of something as deeply entrenched as that and so unconscious, too.
Exactly.
So when you do succeed and this all shifts and the burden of this is lifted from one of your clients, do you actually see the light bodies coming together differently? I mean, how does it look to you? Because you've been trained to see into these dimensions. So what is the difference after a successful soul retrieval?
The best way I can describe it, when you're standing outside on a summer day and you cast a shadow, mm-hmm. and yet when you move to a certain position and it's like 12 o'clock and you can't see your shadow anymore, it's like that. It's like within the matrix of all these light filaments, and I personally don't see it as an aura. I see it kind of as spider webbing of light. This is going to sound irreverent, but it's like when your computer gets a bunch of viruses, and you have to defrag the computer and reload the software. That's what it looks like to me in the matrix of the field of the person. It's like they're downloaded differently. They carry themselves differently. The light in their eyes looks different. And then, of course, they have to live it. They have to take that word I keep using, action. It's up to them at that point not to slip back into the melancholy or the depression or the anger or the shame, because they have refabricated themselves. And most people I see, if they come back or I see them later on, they're just in a great or a much better space than they were.
So it really sticks, which is great.
Right.
That's, again,
I think that's why it's happened for so long.
Yeah, that's why
it's been around for so long.
Right, because it works and it doesn't have to go back to the way it was, and so it's true healing. It's really true healing.
It's true healing, not necessarily curing, and it's all a choice.
And when you talk about not necessarily healing, not curing, let me ask you, have you had anybody come to you that has a serious illness and they want help with that?
I have, and for most people, it has helped them look at that differently or learn the lesson of it. I'm not going to tell you for a minute that I've cured cancer or anything like that. But if people make different choices, they might not have the heart attack or they might not have the high blood pressure.
Right.
But once something, the last place anything of a dense vibratory nature manifests is in the physical body. That's the last, coming in from the psycho-spiritual body through those mental and emotional layers. The last place that has to impact, and it's generally over years, is the physical body. And you add to that the pollution, the food, the vibration of how our seeds are now with things like Monsanto and
God.
There are other things being done to the physical body.
Yeah, there's a big assault on all of our physical realities and our physical bodies for sure. But again, you're talking about when you deal with any imbalance that's coming in ahead of that. I agree with you. I think emotional imbalance is very impactful, and it's something that I always say, look, emotions are like rocket fuel. And if you don't handle these things, they're going to blow you up. That's what's going to happen. It's the way it is. So, anything like that that's out of balance, it's pretty serious. And you can see how that would make a big difference in someone's life if they do have a balanced emotional state, if they're not carrying around a lot of pain and hurt and anger and grief. Because I feel today a lot of people are in a lot of grief. I don't know if you see that in your practice, but there seems to be a lot of unexpressed grief.
I agree with that. And I think people on the whole are so tired and so discouraged and can't lift their heads up from working day to day that to just get to the next step. That, you particularly see this in the younger generation. It's kind of like, what the hell? Why bother? And yet that's not the answer either.
No, it isn't. But again, you bring up an interesting point about people being so tired. At the end of the day, they're wiped out. The food is costing a fortune. Their bills are out of control. Their property taxes are super high. And so at the end of the day, they barely have the energy to crawl into bed, let alone remember their dreams. Now, I work with people also with dream analysis. I've got a little handbook out now called Dream Calm. I wrote it real short and just so people could have a quick handbook, something to get them started. But I have so many people tell me that they can't remember their dreams, and I really believe it's an energy issue for a lot of them.
I think what I would encourage them to do, and in my classes I do this, write the first word you think of when you wake up. Maybe it's a color. Maybe it's just a word. Maybe it's a line from a song. It might not have anything you think to do with the dream, but because our dreams are the language of imagery and often archetypes, those little nuggets can start to lead you to something very synchronistic. I think, we all use language, and we all think we have to write down the language of the dream as the form of the dream's communication, but the dream is really about vibration. And so when you can kind of bypass the language barrier and that time-space continuum of this happened in the dream and then this happened in the dream, you're just getting into the frequencies of it. And when you're able to do that, you're able to tap into deeper places where it really isn't a language or a dream at all. It's just a vibratory connection with something within yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And now, do you also recommend any particular supplements, herbal teas, anything, any foods people can eat to help them to remember their dreams?
I sometimes, and I'm not prescribing, I sometimes suggest MSM because the pineal gland is such a major function for us to access our light body and our higher states of consciousness, and that begins to get encrusted with all the medical shots we're given and the fluoride in the water and all the rest of that. So the MSN helps clean the pineal. Most people these days need adrenal support. Their adrenals are just shot from exactly what we talked about a few minutes ago, the bills, the property taxes, getting the kids to school and to 100 activities. Vitamin D, I think, is really important because we're not getting enough sunlight, especially those of us in the northern tier states, and that's a very important thing for all of us. So my new big thing is Changa tea. It's actually like a mushroom or a mold that grows on Siberian birch trees, and it really detoxes and cleans the system.
How do you spell that, Sandy?
Changa.
Changa, okay. Because I know everybody's going to be asking me, how do you spell that mushroom? Okay, everybody, you heard it. Changa. And that's
there's no N. Chaga. Yes, you can buy it in tea, and you can buy it in extract, like pill form, like a dietary supplement.
Okay, so that's and I've also, I also tell people check your B vitamin levels because B vitamins are water soluble, so you don't store them. But B6 is very important to remembering dreams, but you also don't want to overdo B6. So
exactly, and then you give yourself those niacin flushes.
Oh God, yeah, and your heart can start beating. You think you're having a heart attack, but you just took too much darn B6. So you gotta be careful with it.
Which is why I suggest the adrenal supports, because one of the things that happens when you're on hyperdrive all the time is those two little glands are the first things that are affected, and that can throw off your thyroid, it can throw off your circadian rhythms, it can throw off all kinds of things.
Oh yeah, and it's very overlooked, I find, by physicians today. They never even check for that for the most part, unless you're going to a functional medicine doctor. Most of them will ignore that issue, but you're right, that issue of adrenal fatigue is at the bottom of a lot of biological disturbances that we're trying to fix, and you can't fix it until you address the adrenal stress. So that's a good point you bring up, and I'm glad to have an opportunity to talk about this to our audience. So if you're tired out there in our audience listening, and you may have adrenal fatigue, find a doctor who can test you for it and get you on supplements or whatever you feel comfortable taking to build up your adrenal glands and give them the support that they need. It's fight or flight, and then they get exhausted from either one of those things or both, and then you have no energy. So
exactly.
Yeah, and you're right. It also does throw the axis off of things in the brain, so it's a very bad thing. Very bad. Well, Sandy, this has been such a pleasure. I could just talk all night with you. You are just a delightful person, so knowledgeable about so many things, and you're doing such good work in the world, helping people. This is your path. I guess they're not going to let you get off it no matter what.
No, and it is my passion. I have to be honest. I really do love my work. And I can't say there's any person that's ever walked through my office door or into one of my workshops that I haven't enjoyed. And I know that sounds kind of Pollyanna-ish, but I think when you look past the fears and the projections, that we're all just the same, trying the hardest we can to get to the next step. And if we could just get that we can support each other in the smallest ways, even if it's just a smile sometimes, I think we'd all be better off. And I have to thank you. This has been a wonderful opportunity. I love this show, so this is even more exciting that you got to interview me on it.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I'll tell you what, it is people like you, Sandy, that make the show so wonderful and so worth doing, because people need to hear from you. People need to hear about your personal journey that you wrote about so eloquently in Shamanic Awakening, And they need to hear more about how you handle these very dark times in your own life, so that I know that your talking to our audience tonight gave them hope and gave us all inspiration and another way to understand what we're going through in the world today. So thank you so much. This has been another transformational evening on Supernatural Girls. So,
and I hope Becky feels better and
thank you.
Recoups soon here.
Well, thank
Tell
you.
her I'm waving at her right now.
Oh, thank you. Well, I know she's probably not listening tonight because I know she was kind of tired, but I know she'll be listening to the show later. And before we started tonight, I just wanted to say to you, I got a message that you have a message for Becky. So if you do have a message for her, feel free to email that to me, and I'll pass it on to her, or I'll be happy to give you her phone number, and you can talk to her directly.
All right. I thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you, Sandy. And everybody, this has been a wonderful evening, and please come back next week. We're going to have another great show. And in the meantime, enjoy your week, enjoy your life, and I'll be talking to you real soon.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another radio adventure with Supernatural.